You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Today, I have Kelsey Byers on the podcast of Nourished Roots Spice Co. Thank you so much for taking some time out to chat and share your story.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Out of nowhere, small world Oklahoma, we probably know a lot of the same people. Because your now husband, congratulations on recently getting married, is a former Energy soccer player, goalkeeper, right?
Yes.
So most people will know your last name if they're an Energy fan.
Yes.
But let's start. Usually we kind of, how these work is we just kind of go all the way back to, you know, where you grew up and then how you get to where you are now. So that being said, were you born and raised in Oklahoma?
No. Okay. So I was actually born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. Basically lived there until I was about 22. I went to LSU for college, and then everybody, that's like one of the main questions I get all the time is, what brought you to Oklahoma? And it was school. I actually went to school to become a registered dietitian. And in the dietetic system, you have to get matched to a program, and I got matched to a program at OU. And so that brought me to Oklahoma to finish my registered dietitian schooling. It's actually where I ended up meeting Brian, and that's what got me up here to start with. But I really loved it up here, so I decided to stay, and I haven't really looked back. So
yeah, what's it like growing up in in New Orleans as well, like Louisiana? Because a lot of people just go there for the weekend, right?
Yes,
it's kind of like a big weekend destination. I've done it once. I don't want to do it again. It was pretty rough, but it was a heavy weekend for sure. We went down there for OSU played against Ole Miss in a bowl game on the 1st of January. Mm-hmm. So we skipped New Year's Eve, and then actually we spent New Year's Eve in Baton Rouge and then went down the next day, and we had a great time. OSU got destroyed, but we had a very good time, and that's been my only really proper time in New Orleans. I've popped in every now and then to get some beignets on the road, but mostly it's a weekend destination, right?
Yes, yeah, and I don't know. It's for me. I mean, obviously, it was just very normal. We have really, really deep roots in New Orleans. My entire family has been there since literally the beginning of New Orleans. We have proof that we can actually trace our family line back to the Destrehan plantation. So there's actually a little town called Destrehan in Louisiana. It's about 45 minutes away from actual New Orleans, and they had a lot of sugarcane on that plantation, and we can actually trace our family line back to that plantation. So it's pretty cool. That's just, there's a Destrehan town, Destrehan High School, Destrehan plantation, and so yeah, we have super deep roots there. Yeah. All my family's still there, but it felt very normal to grow up there. To be honest with you, I didn't realize that Mardi Gras wasn't a national thing until I was probably 12 years old. I remember telling my mom one day, everybody else is going to be off for Mardi Gras too. And she was like, no, Kelsey, that's only a New Orleans thing. Like I had no idea that it was only New Orleans. I was like, what? Other people don't have Mardi Gras? Like that's crazy. So yeah, I've only missed 3 Mardi Gras in my entire life. And I don't know. It was just part of my life. All of the specific cultural things were just so deeply ingrained into our everyday. Like it's crawfish season. We're going over here. We're having a crawfish boil. It was just a normal Friday afternoon for us,
Yeah, that it's different, right? When you grow up in some place, right, that has so many social ties just to that place, and then you go somewhere else. It's eye-opening, right? You're like, my whole way of life is different now. Like everything's changed. Like we're not doing this on this weekend that we do every year, that I've done every year since I can remember.
Yes.
So yeah, big culture shock for sure.
And one of the biggest things, honestly, was moving away and like forgetting constantly that I can't just wander around with alcohol on the streets here, like because it's legal in New Orleans just to walk around wherever with open container, like nobody can do anything to you. Yeah. So that was probably the only law that I had to get used to, even just moving states.
Yeah. How was LSU?
Oh, I loved LSU.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just such a fun school. And I didn't love Baton Rouge so much. It was just like the street system. It was just like everything was on top of each other. It's hard to get anywhere. There wasn't really much to do. There's not much to do in Baton Rouge. I don't recommend really visiting unless you're specifically going to do LSU football games or something. There's not much else to do there, but going to school there was really fun.
Yeah. There's like casino on the boat, right? And that's it.
Yeah. Right? There's not too much.
Not much going on. Yeah. I haven't been to an LSU football game yet, but I do have friends that live close or down there and that invited me, and I need to go.
Yeah.
Especially for one of the big ones. But so growing up in New Orleans, right, and in Louisiana, in that area, they love food down there. Mm-hmm. So does that kind of generally fit into why you wanted to become a dietitian? Like, how do we get to that growing up? Yeah,
it's actually a great question. I haven't talked about this in a little while, but so growing up, a lot of the women in my family were obese, like 300 plus pounds. And just as a little girl, I just thought in my brain that I was just going to end up obese. Like that was just part of my destiny. And that was a terrifying thought for me. Like I wanted to be a healthy person. I wanted to start a new path for like my future family, my kids, and just like set that example also for the other women in my family that, you can be healthy. And, maybe just through me trying to live by example, they might absorb some of that and be inspired to change, the way that they have been living their life. So I got a super big passion for health and fitness. I became obsessed with it. Like literally, I became a personal trainer, fitness instructor. I was doing classes. I was at the gym for way too long a day. All this kind of stuff I would never do now. I have a much more balanced lifestyle. But at the time, I truly believed that in order for me to just avoid becoming obese, which is really my fear, I had to spend like 3 hours in the gym and have a lot of more on the other end of the extreme side of the spectrum. But eventually, I was able to level all of that out. But really it was watching. It wasn't even, obviously the size. It was more so watching my mom being embarrassed, like asking on an airplane to get an extension because her belt didn't fit. It was her not being able to ride the roller coasters that she wanted to ride and not being able to ride the bicycles in France when we went to France. Like those things that just took away from her quality of life and made her feel just like she couldn't be that adventurous person that she wanted to be. That's what really broke my heart. And so that was really what I was determined to try and change in my family tree. And so that's what sparked the whole health and fitness thing. That's why I went for dietetics. And that's where my love of all things food came from too. So
yeah, because if you're working out that much, you can eat whatever you want. Right?
Yes,
you can to a certain extent, right? You can never outrun a bad diet, which my wife keeps reminding me. But I am like in my kind of like fitness journey. I can't stay steady, right? I'm either training for something or I'm not.
Yeah.
So probably, and this is a wild thing to compare myself to, but it's kind of like a boxer, right? A boxer's like one of the famous boxers from the UK is Ricky Hatton. And in his off season, he called himself Ricky Fatten because he just ate what he wanted to, but then obviously, went into deep training. I don't go into that much of training, but like I'm either on or I'm off, which is not good.
All or nothing.
Yeah, I need to kind of like find a happy medium. So I'll get there one day, I'm sure. But so playing sports a lot growing up, were you kind of really active before, like you thought, I'm going to be a fitness trainer and go to the gym?
So I was a cheerleader.
Okay.
I actually really loved doing diving as well. So it was more like kind of gymnastics based. And my mom and dad, they put me in all kinds of sports. I tried softball. I think I played one game of soccer. I tried volleyball a little bit, but nothing really ever stuck for me. Did a bit of track, bit of cross country, but nothing was like something I was super passionate about. And then one day I woke up and just said, I want to learn how to do a back handspring. And so my mom put me in some tumbling classes. I got my back handspring probably in like 6th or 7th grade. And then from there, I tried out for cheer, and that was my passion through the end of high school. And then I was like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. Did you, when's the last time you did a back handspring? Have you tumbled recently?
Yeah, I actually did an adult gymnastics class like 2 years ago because I just wanted to see if I could still do some flips. So my body definitely can. It's more so my brain that I'm like, it's just a fear thing. Like I just haven't done it in so long. So I could still do like round up back handsprings. I probably could still do like actual back flips, but it's more of a mental block and some aerials too. So yeah.
You need to go to like a jump, like one of those trampoline jump houses or whatever to kind of get some confidence back, right? And
yes.
Or ball pits or whatever you call them, foam pits or whatever. I always see people do that and just think that is the coolest thing ever. But
it's a big adrenaline rush.
Yeah, and it takes a lot, especially when you watch and you mentioned LSU. Like LSU have been very good at gymnastics. I know they recently lost out to OU in the national championship. But LSU have been very good in gymnastics as well, right? So you've got that around, and it might not have been when you were there, but just seeing that, like that's when you watch gymnastics and they're on the mat and they're doing their performance, you're like, they looks like they're having the best time of their lives, right? And then they're just flying through the air. You're like, that's cool, right?
There's something so special. And I think I feel really lucky that I did decide to go through the cheer process because there's a lot of gymnastics elements. But I think that really set me up well in my fitness journey because I have much better body control and I'm a very, very big power athlete even to this day. So I adjusted really well. I actually joined CrossFit and I did that for several years and I still love CrossFit. I just honestly haven't really found much time for it. But a lot of those skills translated really well there. And like the power aspect of Olympic lifting is just like one of my favorite things. And it's like comparable to how I used to feel whenever I would tumble.
Okay. My brother's a big CrossFit athlete. I'm not. I've had friends try and get me into it and I'm like, I'd just rather go do some bicep curls or run. I can run like long distance. That's fine. It's funny you say that because a lot of people have said that, right? A lot of people similarly have gone from, either, gymnastics to CrossFit or something similar into CrossFit because of that same feeling. And I get it. I mean, when you go to watch CrossFit competitions, like it's a pretty cool atmosphere to be around. It's team mentality, even though you're be out there being an individual, your gym is there supporting you. So I agree. I see a lot of cool things happen from it. I would just break ankles and wrists and everything else. It
can be a frustrating sport if you don't have something that's like a basis to get you started on. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. So when you then go, you said you did cheerleading up to high school. When do you decide? I know you mentioned that kind of the story. Did you decide very early on to go to dietetics, or was it kind of like, hey, I see this all around me. Now I get to go to university. What should I do? Oh, no brainer. Let's do this. Yeah,
I was not one of those people that changed my major a million times. I literally went into LSU as dietetics as my major, and I never looked back. So I really enjoyed I'm good at science. There's a decent amount of math actually involved, but mostly sciences. And I just found it so interesting and I learned so much. And it's like really set me up for what I'm doing now. And I don't know. It was not a second thought for me. I was like, I know this is what I want to do. Something about food and something about nutrition is really where I need to be.
Well, and a lot of people and your why is a big buzzword, right? And what's your motivation and the reason that you do things? And clearly, just hearing you talk for 13 minutes now, it's just like, your why is because your family, right? You wanted to change the kind of course of the family dynamic going forward and show that, I don't have to be like everybody else. I can do this. And it's a lot of pressure, right? But also like you've got a lot of support as well. And that like I can do this. It's like you said, it's simple math and science. It's not, like rocket science, right? It's just like, okay, break it down as simple as you can. Don't eat less calories than you burn or whatever it is. But as you can tell, I'm not huge into that stuff. But my wife does count her macros every now and then when she's training. So I get it. She was walking around with a little scale and I was like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, the whole macro counting thing is it's a job.
Yeah. So then when you get your assignment, I guess, to come to OU, what's going through your head at that time? Like you're kind of been home this whole time, right? Growing up, you're in university, you're close-ish to home, right? An hour away, roughly.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you know what? I'm going to Oklahoma from LSU. Like, talk me through that.
Yeah. So I did look at a lot of places. I applied kind of all over the country. I did apply to 2 local ones, but the way that it works is that you actually have to rank what you prefer first. Okay. And it's like after you have all these meetings with the different people, it's kind of like if they rank you and you rank high on both lists, then that's where you match. And I actually ranked Oklahoma as my first pick. And just the reason was because I just thought that the program was going to be really great. I really liked, the guy that was leading the whole program in my interview. And I very much could have put the local places first, but I felt like I needed to get out. And it wasn't for any specific reason. It was more so like, obviously my family's amazing. I had amazing friends down there, but I just had this like weird feeling inside of me that was like, I am not going to be able to reach my potential if I stay put, because this is very comfortable. And while I would still probably be just fine at the end of the day, I think that getting out, I could really discover more of who I am, especially because at the time I was only, 22 years old. I'm still very young, still a developing adult. And I felt like it was just that chapter where I was on this cliff of like, where or this fork in the road, like, could I stay comfortable? And then your life takes a whole new path. And because I chose to leave, I truly believe if I would have stayed, I never would have become an entrepreneur because things would have been too comfortable. And I never would have had that extra push to take that leap. Because nobody in my family has been an entrepreneur. Nobody would have encouraged me to do that. And through me finding my own life, creating my own life, I just had a lot of these like, screw it moments. Like, I'm just going to do this and I'm just going to believe in myself and keep pushing forward. And so it's been a cool change. It's
good. I mean, to have that like insight at such a young age, right? And to say, you know what, I'm going to leave. And if worst case to worst, I can always come back.
Right? Exactly.
Like, but just to have that was it's probably really cool, as well as, technically, I say technically, you're in the medical profession, right? So you have a lot of doctors and people doing all that pre-med stuff. They're already like going all over the country, right?
Yes. So
that kind of helps too, that you're like, it's not just me. I've got a support group around me that are showing you that, you can do this. Yeah, it can be done. Because you're all kind of having those similar conversations, right? And then you get to match day and you're like, oh, great, I'm going to OU.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it was that time where it was like, I might not get this chance again because this is my opportunity to, like you said, it could be temporary. It could not be temporary. I could go do my internship and come right back, or I could go and find something better and, go from there and move somewhere else or stay or whatever,
What did you think when you first came to Norman?
So I didn't have to go to Norman. I went to OU Medical.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was actually in Oklahoma City. I lived in Bricktown when I got here. And it was so funny. I literally shipped myself a mattress and I drove up here in my Sentra and whatever could fit in my Sentra. And I knew nobody. I had no friends, didn't know anybody coming to this program, and just moved like that. And that was like still one of the best things ever.
Yeah, life in Bricktown as a 22, 23, 24-year-old, pretty entertaining, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, I had no problem because luckily just knowing that there was going to be other people in the program, I was able to kind of talk to them on email beforehand, got a couple of roommates. So at least I had like a couple of roommates when I got here, even though I, never met them. And yeah, we had our first day on internship and all like that night we all went out. So it's like, it didn't take long to make some friends.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you get here, how long is like the course then? Is it like a master's 2 year? Like how does does that go?
No, so it was only a 9-month course.
Okay.
Yeah, so normally in dietetic internships are about a year. So this one was a bit more of like an expedited, like fast-paced one. And so yeah, only 9 months.
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's not like, dragging you out like you're on. And then during that, you mentioned it's an internship, so you're on, you're working with real people, right? You're
Yes.
working with people going through issues, and like you're kind of thrown in the deep end at that point, putting all your training into actual work.
Yes, yeah. So you're on location, you're rotating. So you do medical, or you do clinical rotation, food service management rotation, and community rotation. So for I was mostly at OU Medical for my clinicals and food service management, which was the cafeteria side of the hospital. And then for my community rotations, you work with like WIC and just any kind of nonprofit food, like SNAP, all of those kind of governmental programs. And you go like week to week and you kind of just bounce around. So really fun. I really enjoyed my whole internship.
Yeah. You mentioned, WIC and SNAP, like the whole, and the regional food bank do a lot of stuff here. Like it's eye opening when you go with them through that stuff, right? It's heartbreaking because you're like, when you grow up and you kind of oblivious to kind of food poverty, I guess. And just kind of simple things like, we did kind of went through a year class with the regional food bank and learned so much. And like the thing that shocked me the most was like kids had never, there was an example of one kid that had never had a real peach. They always thought peaches came from cans.
Wow.
And you're just like, it's heartbreaking stuff, right? But again, it comes through, there's obviously a lack of money for food, but then going forward, it's the education side of things as well, which you get to help with.
Yes.
Being dietetics and going into that. So, I'm sure every day you're like, I get to help people. It's pretty epic. It doesn't,
Yes.
It kind of warms the heart a little bit.
Yes. There's so many different like avenues within dietetics that you can go into. And to be honest with you, I really did love like WIC and SNAP. I also really loved dialysis, but what stole my heart was actually sports dietetics. And I actually rotated with the energy. Well, it was with Exos, and the energy just happened to be running through Exos at that time that I was there, which is where I met Brian. And I always thought I was going to go on to become a sports dietitian. But yeah, I actually instead once I actually got my RD, I opened up the local Lifetime back, a couple of years ago. Lifetime.
In Quail?
Quail Springs. Yeah, Lifetime Athletic, and worked there for about a year. So it was kind of like being able to marry that fitness side of me, that dietetic side of me. And so I did nutrition coaching there, and I did like 12 things. I wore a lot of hats there, which honestly, like working there too, helped me a lot in preparing me for becoming an entrepreneur, because it's a commission only position. And so you're basically running your own business in a business anyway. They teach you sales training, lead generation, all of that good stuff. So I got a lot of training in that. And then wearing a ton of hats. I was wearing all the hats with like supplements. I was running lab stuff. I was doing nutrition coaching. I was the head nutrition coach, so I had them under me. And then I was also personal training and teaching classes. So it was a lot. But I think that was, at the end of the day, it was not the place for me, but it set me up in the perfect way to like do what I'm doing now. So.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't probably realize that at the time, right? You know now.
Yes.
You look back and you're like, wow, like I learned so much.
Yes.
Even just like managing a schedule with all those things going on.
Yes. Yeah, they definitely don't teach you anything about business in dietetics. That's for sure.
Yeah. So does this then lead into you starting the spice company? Like what time does that happen? And then where does the idea come from to be an entrepreneur, when you mentioned that no one in your family is entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, basically, whenever I was at Lifetime, because it was commission only, at the beginning it was great because it was a lot of hype around it. And then after about a year, I personally was tending to get rags and riches kind of paychecks. So, being fresh out of college, I was really starting to just build my own savings account, and I couldn't really afford to have rags and riches paychecks. I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me. So my thought was, how can I at least help myself level this out? And so I was like, I'll get a little side hustle. And there was a local family who came into Lifetime, and they had moved here from Boston. And in Boston, they had a girl that cooked their meals for them, kind of like family style meal prep. And, I asked her, I was like, if you don't mind, how much did you charge for that? Or how much did you pay for that? And when she told me, I was like, I can do that.
I can cook.
Yeah, I can do that. So that was kind of my solution to, helping even out my paychecks. And so it was really genuinely only for that reason. And then word quickly spread that I was cooking for people. So I had a full-blown meal prep business. And once my meal prep business started to, get to a certain level, I was actually able to quit Lifetime, which essentially allowed me to have all of the time in the world to start to work on my business. So I did not have the spice idea until about, I don't know, maybe a year after I was meal prepping. So yeah, I really started my whole entrepreneurial journey through cooking and meal prepping. And then it was honestly a lot. It was a lot of work. I didn't really love destroying my kitchen constantly. That was not really fun for me. And while I knew I could cook well, I was like, this is not necessarily sustainable, long term. How am I going to scale this? And so I just had this idea because I was already making my own spices for the meal prep, specifically a lot of Cajun, a lot of Mexican spices. I started making Moroccan food and Indian food, and I realized, hey, I have this little kind of cultural cuisine theme happening here with my spice blends. I don't see why I couldn't just expand on this idea and start bottling them, because not everybody can afford a dietitian or a private chef, but most people can afford a $6 or $7 spice blend. And so, I put together my little idea. I hand printed all the labels at home, hand bottled them at home, was running to Winco once a week to grab bulk spices and bottling them. And that was really fun. But I quickly, again, was like, all right, this is not sustainable, bottling constantly and running around like crazy just to get the product produced. And so, I went from hand bottling for about a year, and 3 months into it, I realized this is not sustainable. Literally, I was like, this is not sustainable. I need to figure out a better way for this. And that's when I started working with a manufacturer behind the scenes, getting my account set up, looking at samples, getting graphic designer, doing the labels, all that stuff took time. And so in the meantime, I was bottling to get through the finish line. And then by the next farmer's market season, I had a fully manufactured product, which totally changed the game for me.
Yeah, that's massive.
Yeah.
Right? Takes so much stress off you.
Oh my gosh.
You find a packer or a co-packer that does all that work.
Mm-hmm.
Are you part of Made in Oklahoma?
I'm part of the program, not the coalition.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's confusing.
Yeah,
right?
there's a difference. I'm not sure what the exact differences are, but.
And then so the farmers markets were basically just kind of your big place to sell, other than referrals and friends through the meal prep business? Yep.
Yeah. So that was honestly, Scissors Hill Park Farmers Market is what proved to me, it's what proved to me that I have a product that people want. Yeah. Because it's one thing for your mom and your best friends to buy your product and a few, random people online, but to go and see it in person, how well received the product was, and to have return customers, I was like, wow, I really have something here. And that's why I was like, all right, I need to find a manufacturer as soon as possible. Yeah.
I mean, looking back, from just, I'm going to be, in dietetics, do you ever think that I'd be doing meal prep, or I'd be doing, all this stuff? What, when you started dietetics, did you think you'd be doing? Where would you think you'd be working, and what was the ideal position starting?
To be honest, I really was envisioning myself being a sports dietitian for an NFL team or an NBA team or something like that. I mean but those jobs are slim, and you really got to bust your butt and prove over years of time to even, the network is small, and you really got to elbow your way in there. And I didn't realize that at first. I just knew I had a passion for people who wanted to live an active, healthy lifestyle. And I knew I was passionate about that in my own life. So I was like, naturally, I'm going to work in sports dietetics. But then once I kind of saw how difficult it actually would be to get in there, and really at the end of the day, a lot of dietitians are very type A, and it's very numbers based and it's very exact. And I don't really have that kind of personality. I knew that when I was surrounded by all these other dietetic students that were crazy about their assignments, and I was more like laid back and chill about it. I was like, why y'all stress it out? So I don't know. I just am a bit more of a creative spirit. And so I think that, yeah, my path is very random. Like my life has been very random to get me to this point. But it, like looking back, like you said, it's like all these little pieces have set me up to do exactly what I'm doing now.
When you look back, it makes sense. But at the time, it's like, ooh, opportunity, yes.
Yes,
right? Like,
exactly.
Which is, again, like one of the things I kind of stress to people, and one of my big kind of things is that, you know, you don't know what you like doing unless you say yes to a bunch of stuff, right?
Yes.
It's not like, oh, I'm, you know, like for me, like I don't like olives. We talk about food, right? I am quite a bland eater. I come from the UK, shocker. We don't like a lot of food other than like, and I'm not a big spicy eater either, but I do like some Indian food because the UK has the best Indian takeout in the world. 100%. But like, I'll say no to a bunch of foods because I just don't like the look of it, right? But, and that kind of translates into you know, saying no to any opportunity, right? Because you if you just said no to, I'm not going to travel, not going to try and go across country and go to a different school, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't have met Brian, you wouldn't have got into the energy thing, you know, like you just, all of these things and like the domino effect of that, right? And you could have got here and you said, no, I don't like it, I'm going back to LSU. Totally fine. But just the amount of people that just say no to things off the bat instead of just saying, yes, let's try this. See what can happen, you know?
Yes.
You look back, you're like, I had a meal prep business. I had, I was a fitness trainer. Like you've done all these things which then help you going forward.
Yeah, they've equipped me with all the right tools at the right time. One thing that I will say on my journey that's been very important to me is like following my gut feelings and my gut instinct. Like I almost can't deny them. Like if it feels not right, I really can't push myself, or I might be able to for a little while. Yeah. But if it doesn't feel good to me, I can't do it. And that's kind of annoyed me at parts of my journey because I'm like, man, like logically this should make sense, you know, but for whatever reason, I'm having resistance to it. And so I've always just had to honor that. And I think that has been my like secret, so to speak. I don't know where it comes from, but it's never really led me wrong. Yeah. And so I continue, especially in my entrepreneurial journey, because there's no blueprint. There's nobody there telling me what to do or what's the next best move. And so I rely on my gut instinct a ton to get me where I need to go.
Is there any things that you know, to kind of jump on top of that, is there any things that like you did try and you're like gut saying, no, you're not good at this, but you tried to force it and then eventually we're like, I probably shouldn't do this, probably should have listened to myself? Or any ideas that you tried that you're like, it's not with it?
Yeah, I don't know. I've had a few different ideas. I'm the idea queen, I will say. And I think that is a pro and a con because it's a pro because I never run out of ideas, but it's definitely a con because the ideas can be a distraction. And so, yes, there's definitely been many ideas that I've been like, you know, initially like, this is going to be a really great thing. And then I start to kind of see it unfold. And then I'm like, you know what, that's not actually going to be, you know, good. And so I've been really honing in on my skill to identify what's a shiny object and what's going to be really a good thing long term. Yeah. So I've gotten a lot better at that. I used to chase all the shiny objects and now I've really learned how to scale that back.
I am the dreamer in my family as well. So I know I have a little yellow notebook and it has all my ideas in it and that's all they go. And as long as they're in there, I can circle back and keep making notes, but I have to write them down.
Yep.
Because if I don't, I'll forget about them and they'll probably pop up later and I'm like, oh, I thought about this. I've written a bunch of notes on it. Maybe, but we're plagued by not having enough time. Right? Because, you being a fan of ideas and shiny objects, I'm the same way. Yeah. Like if I had the time, I would do 1,000,001 things and love doing all of them. Sometimes we don't have enough money to do things. Sometimes we don't have enough time. Sometimes it's both. Yep. But yeah, it's but I enjoy life that way. Like, it's super exciting.
It is.
Right? Every day can be different because of that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I would struggle in an office working 9 to 5.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Just couldn't do it.
I couldn't either.
So back to the business then, right? So you kind of got your co-packer, right? Or you're packaging people. You're off to the races. You're going to the farmers markets now, kind of fully prepped with, I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. Where did it go from there? Was this last year?
With the farmers market? Mm-hmm. I mean,
after you got the labeling.
After the labeling,
so you
okay.
kind of fixed that problem of this is now sustainable. Where does it go from there?
So my next move was I want to get into a store. And this is actually really funny. So this is adorable looking back on. I'm like, get all dressed up because I'm a businesswoman, and I run out to the Conscious Community Co-op, which is out in Edmond on Waterloo. And I had a conversation with this woman on the phone, and I told her about my product. Basically I just start cold calling. That's my strategy. Yeah. And, I talked to her on the phone, and she was like, yeah, I'm interested. Bring some over. And I thought she meant like samples. So, but I had my car packed full from the manufacturer. Like, my whole car was full of product. And I drove over there with my samples and gave them to her. And she comes out and she was like, oh no, sweetie, I think you misunderstood me. I want to buy your product like right now. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I have some in my car. I was like, come on. And she comes out to my car, and I open up my trunk, and I was like, oh, what do you want? And she was like, all of it. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? All of it? I was like, this is all I have. I have a farmer's market. I was like, I didn't know what to do. And so I told her I couldn't sell her all of it because I had a farmer's market to go to. And then I told my dad about it later, and he was like, you should have sold all of it to her. And I was like, but I just didn't know what to do. I was like in a predicament, whatever. So anyway, that was the story of how I got my first ever storefront, and they bought the entire line. She wanted everything in my car. It was crazy. And then I took my friends out to dinner that night. I was like, I've got this,
Balling, big time.
I was I have this mastered. And of course, that was the first experience, and that is not how they all go. But yeah, from there, my biggest focus was, continue the farmers markets. I actually hired a couple of girls to help me run farmers markets. So I would multiply those markets, started doing Scissortail and Edmond at the same time. And then last year I did Norman for a bit, as well as the public market. So sometimes we're having 4 to 5 events at a time. So I'd have girls all over the city. And that was a really exciting step. And just, for me, finding people, it's been interesting because, I know a lot of small business owners, and a lot of them struggle to find people that want to work for them. And so it's been such a cool experience and a blessing to have girls just reaching out to me being like, can I come work for you? And, I feel like that just speaks a lot to the product. Like, they have a lot of passion for the product and the business that I'm building. And they've been with me now for 3 years. And so that's been a really big blessing for me. That was a big goal of mine too, to just have at least some kind of employee. But yeah, really the focus has been last year. Last year, the focus was be out in the community as much as possible and wholesale. And so, I was doing a lot of cold calling in the middle of the week, a lot of cold emails, just following up with people and delivering everything myself, mailing things out. That was the focus last year. So, yeah.
It's exciting then.
Yeah.
Going into this year and this season of, I guess now we're starting to kick off, right? With the weather's getting better, farmers market season is starting to kick off.
Yes.
Which is exciting. So before we started recording, you mentioned a potential rebrand or a rebrand that's coming soon. Let's talk about it. Why have you decided to rebrand, and what's the direction? Yeah.
So essentially, since I've already kind of told you my story, whenever I opened my LLC, Nourished Roots Co., I did not have this spice idea in my head at all. And so I just decided to name it that because I thought maybe I'd do some meal prep. I thought maybe I'd do some nutrition coaching. So I wanted some kind of nourished, whatever. And to be quite honest with you, people don't necessarily connect the brand name with the product. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people just don't even know what my company name is. Mm-hmm. And for me, I want to take this nationwide. And if I'm going to do that, I need to make sure that the brand name makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so everybody only knows me as the Spice Girl. Even other vendors, they don't know my business name.
Makes so much sense now with the sweater you have on.
Yes.
I was like, she loves the Spice Girls. No,
Yes.
now it makes sense.
Yeah. No, literally the vendors and customers, they don't know my business name. They go up and ask people, where's the Spice Girl? Where's the Spice Girl? Yeah. And so I got named that from the customers, and people would be like, well, what's your actual name? I'd be like, don't worry about it.
Spice Girl.
It's just Spice Girl's fine. I'll respond to it. Yeah. So
childhood dream right here.
Yes.
Right? Like I've named a Spice Girl.
Exactly. Yeah.
All the 90s women out there are like, you're kidding me, right? Yeah. I was born in the 90s.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was, and so the fact that people they're not like, oh, where's Nourished Roots? It's like, where's the Spice Girl? So I'm not changing the product. I'm not changing the packaging, really. I'm mostly just changing the actual name.
Okay.
And one of the things that is important to me in the whole mission of the spices is that I really want to show people that healthy doesn't have to be bland, but that it can also be very, very simple to make flavorful, healthy food. And so the whole spice line is like flavor done for you. It's completely salt and sugar free. It's a culturally inspired spice line. And with that, because of the mission of teaching people how to eat healthy, just through a simple product, I always had a free cookbook that you can download off of my website. And now with this whole rebrand, we're actually making it a full-blown food blog. And so you can sort it by spice. You can go on and we're going to constantly have new recipes coming out. It's going to allow us to do a lot more with our marketing as far as social media and email marketing, because we're not always having new products coming out, but we can always have new recipes come out, new cooking videos, and that just adds value to the product for the consumer, and we can continue to put out more and more content that's going to help with our overall mission of the spices.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the fact that, like, you know, it's, and I talk to business owners a lot, right, on the podcast, and I never get tired of seeing people get just elated and jazzed up about something they're doing, right? And it's not just in your voice, like you clearly are pumped about this, right? I see it in your eyes, see it in your face, like it's exciting, right? And it's something you're taking ownership in, and something that there's nothing better, I think, than having a name that's been given to you by your customers, right? It's not like I came up with this cool name. It's a really cool name. It's my idea. No, they named you, and you're like, they're going to take ownership in that as well, right? Yep. Which helps you because, you know, building a community through your customers going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've had, I haven't even had any shirts that really say Nourished Roots on them. I mean, maybe on the back, but I've had several different versions, and I'll have like Spice Girl on the front. And everybody who comes up, they just like laugh at it. They're like, oh my God, that's so cute, you know, Spice Girl. And so I'm like, man, I really just gotta make that switch, because if I'm going to go anywhere bigger, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder to rebrand later than it is to be now. So I'm really excited about the change. I think it's going to add a whole new freshness to like my repertoire of ideas that I have in the background. And I mean, we are planning on launching a couple of new products this year. And I just have some freaking big plans. Like we're going up with this.
That's amazing. Tell me about the spices. Just, you know, I know you mentioned it a little bit just then, but let's dive deep into kind of what the spices are, why they're so different, and, you know, why it's healthy, it's flavorful, and just kind of, we can nerd out on this as well. So like, you got time. So tell me about the spices and kind of why it is so important to have the product that you have. Yeah.
So, well, first of all, just in general, a lot of people would not think twice, they wouldn't think to like make Thai food. It's not like, oh, like tonight we're having Thai. You know, that's just not in your typical American household. But a lot of people will go out to get Thai food. They'll go out to get Indian food, and in reality, a lot of the flavors, the secret is in their spice blend. And so sometimes you don't even need to be making, that's really the whole point of the spice line, is you don't even really need to be making Indian food specifically. But, you know, you can add that spice to anything you're already cooking and it'll taste like Indian food. So I have a lot of people that'll just like air fry cauliflower and they'll throw my Indian spice on it. So that's not an Indian dish, but now it's something a little bit more tasty than just your standard cauliflower. But yeah, I mean, the spices are really different because I, as a dietitian and an accidental private chef, I have never been able to find a full line of spices that's high quality and completely salt and sugar and filler free. I might be able to find like one product and then there's a whole line of stuff. And it's hard for the average consumer to like weed out like what's good and what's not good. And, you know, you don't have to guess with me. Everything is completely salt and sugar free. There's no fillers or dyes of any kind. There's no coatings. And, you know, spices in general are naturally calorie free. And so that's the easiest way to add calorie free flavor to your spices. And they naturally have just good compounds for your body. So yeah, it just was kind of a no brainer for me. And they're just the best.
What's your favorite spice? Do we have any? I know it's probably a really hard question, right? But, I mean, what was the first one that you made?
So I've made my Mexican blend for many years. I love tacos. We eat Mexican once a week at least. And so I've always made my own taco blend for probably 3-4 years. Well, more than that, probably 6 years now that I've made my own. And so it really started with my own Mexican blend, of course, Cajun, going back to my roots. Yeah. I, you know, don't really care for your classic Tony's. It's all right, but it's just so salty. So, and I like a lot of spice. And so I started with my Cajun blend next, but it was my Moroccan blend actually that made me wake up and realize, hey, I really got like a thing going here, a theme. And that was when I was like, all right, now I got to make a line out of this. Okay.
What do you miss from back home?
What do I miss from back home? King cake.
What's that?
Oh my gosh. It's basically, there's a king cake season. Okay. So you can only get it during carnival season, which is like Mardi Gras.
As in kings.
King. Yeah. Okay. Like the 3 kings.
Yeah.
So basically it's a circular cake. Like it's hollow in the middle. So it just goes around.
Like a donut.
Yeah. It's basically a giant donut, but it's a cinnamon roll kind of, but it's different than a cinnamon roll. It's very cinnamony. It's got icing on top, like a cinnamon roll kind of icing with typically purple, green, and gold sprinkles.
Okay.
And you just need to try it.
Yeah.
And there's a baby hidden inside. And if you get the baby, you have to buy the next king cake. That's how it rolls.
That's the tradition.
Yeah.
So that's like a big family thing then?
That's just a New Orleans.
New Orleans in general.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's always a baby inside.
Always a baby.
Can you buy these king cakes at like stores and stuff too?
Yeah, you know what? I actually saw them at Uptown Grocery last year here locally. So around like Mardi Gras time, you can actually usually find a king cake in some like specialty.
And they put a little baby in it too?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, a little plastic baby. So you got to watch out, choking hazard. But you know, honestly, not all king cakes are created equal, but king cake is still good regardless.
Yeah. What do you like most about your business?
The customers, because, you know, it's one thing to have something that you like, but to have somebody come up, I've just had so many really amazing encounters with people. Like I've had certain moms that were like desperate that came up to me and they were like, my kid will not eat anything. And they bought like my Mexican spice, something kind of simple. And I get messages later that's like, I finally got my child to eat something other than French fries. So those are always really fun. I had one guy actually, he had kidney disease. And he came up to me because he was like, I read about your product online. And if you don't know, for kidney disease and dialysis, typically when something says salt-free, it actually has a potassium substitute, which tastes like salt. And the potassium, they can't have the sodium or the potassium. And so that's always like a little bit tricky. And there's not really any like kidney-friendly like marketing out there. But he was like, is it true that you don't have any like salt substitutes either? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh my gosh, I finally, not just one spice, but I have 12 options here. And he bought the whole line because he was like, I know I can go home and I can eat this and it's not going to do anything bad to me. And so and then like, you know, the endless people who have like diabetes or heart issues or, you know, just people that want something like my product. They're like, why is this not all like that? I'm like, I don't know, but you know what? I'm here now. So it's just those kind of encounters just warm my heart. That's every time.
You mentioned kind of marketing, making videos, content. How's that going to evolve going forward? And how do you get, as a small business, do you utilize free platforms like social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, YouTube, to get your word out there and have fun with making videos and teaching people through that?
Yeah, so the marketing journey has been a journey for me. Just small business owners, I think a lot of us struggle with marketing. So I had to really crack a shell because I did not like to put myself out there on social media. I was always terrified people were going to make fun of me, and finally gotten past that. And so lately I've been having a lot more fun with it. And but yeah, I've been utilizing a lot more of like TikTok more so than anything else. And then Pinterest now with the new food blog, it's a lot more food blog friendly, I guess. So I've just been having a lot more fun with it because I'm playing with my food styling skills, and playing again with my food writing, which has been really fun for me. I used to write quite a bit and I hadn't for a while. So going with this rebrand and doing a food blog, I've been able to kind of pull that skill out of the closet, and that's been just a refreshing, fun thing for me.
Just writing in general, or always kind of writing about food?
So yeah, I used to write. Well, I wrote for like some radios and stuff, but mostly about food. Like I did some. They had some public service announcements and stuff. Columns and stuff like that? Yeah, and those were, I was working with a dietitian. I was an intern under her in college, and she had a nonprofit, and so she got those radio spots. And so she had me writing like just some healthy, like 1 minute long little segments. So I did some radio spot writing. I did some writing for GNC on supplements for their email marketing back in college as well. And then, I always enjoyed writing, and I just never really gave myself a chance to keep exploring that. But I've like really had a lot of fun writing now through the food blog, and having the food blog content is a lot more inspiring for me to want to post it on all these different social media platforms. Because before it's kind of like, oh, I got to make another Instagram post, But now it's like, oh, all this content's sitting here, and I can just kind of shorten things and repurpose it, and it just feels like it's all fitting a lot better than it was before.
Yeah, it takes time to develop that skill, right? To kind of, and for someone like you said who didn't feel comfortable originally in front of the camera and posting videos and doing all that stuff, like it's a science and an art in itself, and getting used to that, and the key word you said there that I kind of dinged in my light bulb moment is repurposing content, right? Like you can go and record like this podcast, like I'll send you this podcast and you can use it however you want to use it to repurpose whatever the stories are in here that you can use and lay over some video or whatever. But it's just taking, an hour's worth of content and breaking it down into 9 different videos, right? Yes. It's just the best thing ever. You should start a podcast. Yeah. I tell everybody that too.
Yeah, I would love to start a podcast. That would be really fun.
Very easy to do, I promise you. If I can figure it out, you can do it. It's easy to do. So have you thought about, banging the camera. Have you thought about collaborating with other people, other businesses? Like, one of my sponsors for the podcast is the Oklahoma Beef Council. So spices, meat, makes sense, right? That's kind of in my head. I'm like, oh, that would be really cool. So I will introduce you to those people. Yeah. But have you thought about, collaborating with other businesses going forward? And I know that can be kind of mutually beneficial for small businesses as well, especially when it doesn't cost anything. Like, what's kind of your idea, or have you done any collaborations on that in the past? Yeah,
I've gotten a couple of people interested, and so I'm working on it at the moment. There's a local guy, Uptown Jerky. I don't know if you know. Yeah. Okay, so Mitchell, good friend of mine, small business, couple booths down for me every week. He wants to start using my spices for a new jerky flavor. So that would be a really cool collaboration. And then the other thing is I actually worked with my manufacturer to get bulk spices for restaurant purposes. And so really my next lane of attack right now is working with the local restaurants and working with the local chefs and seeing what we can cook up, especially the ones that have the rotating menus, like Whiskey Cake, for example. And that would be a great way for them to utilize local spices. And then it might get me on their menu. People will be like, this is delicious. I wonder what they put on it. They could sell it. So that's really my next, collaboration effort, I guess.
That's good. And the good thing is there's a lot of local businesses around, and the farmers markets are stocked with people that you can just, when you have time or you have employees doing your booth, you can wander around and say, hey, let's figure this out. Let's do something together, and, kind of helps everybody. So just takes time. You know,
Yes.
it's like no shortage of people around to talk to.
Oh, absolutely.
So finishing up, obviously the rebrand is coming soon. Rebranding into the Spice Girl, is that how we're going to go? Like that's
It's going to be the Spice Girl Kitchen.
Okay.
Yep. So it'll be the spicegirlkitchen.com.
Okay.
And that's where you'll find the food blog, and then all of the spices are going to be moved to the shop there too.
Okay. But for people, if this podcast goes out before that happens, where can they go to now, I guess?
So right now you can find me on Instagram at Nourished Roots Spice Co. And then we also have the website nourishedrootsco.com. That's where you can, message me through the website. But eventually, whenever the rebrand does come out,
right?
Yeah. So, and for a while, I'm going to have it to where when you go to nourishedrootsco.com, it'll automatically redirect you to the Spice Girl Kitchen. And then if you're already following me on Instagram, it'll just change the name there. So that'll be easy.
Okay. So I'll put that link in the description. You guys can go to that, follow Kelsey's business there, and go buy some spice. I'm going to send this to my wife because she does all the shopping for us. And if I did the shopping, we'd probably just eat bland chicken and rice every day with maybe some vegetables. We'll see. But thank you so much for spending some of your time, some of your day sharing your story. It's awesome. I love it. I love the motivation behind it. I love the why. I'm sure family's super proud of you. You're an Oklahoma transplant like me, so I get that.
Yep.
And also I have some personal connections to dialysis and kidney stuff as well through family members.
Okay.
So I totally get when you talk about that as well, because that's a bit of a minefield. Thank you so much for coming down. For people listening, I will post the links in the description, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.